The anime begins by showing us the most powerful and feared king of all time, a legendary warrior whose mere name inspired terror in his enemies. However, in an unexpected twist of fate, this invincible monarch suddenly finds himself suspended in an ethereal and unknown space where a mysterious voice announces that his new life is about to begin and that he must move toward the light shining before him. Confused, but with no other choice, he advances toward the radiance, only to discover with astonishment that he has been reborn as a helpless newborn in the arms of two strangers who gaze at him with tenderness. To his surprise, they introduce themselves as his parents. Reincarnated, a man with a firm gaze and the aura of a warrior, and Alice, a woman with a warm demeanor but a glimmer of magical power in her eyes. Now named Arthur, he struggles to comprehend what has happened. After a lifetime of conquests and battles, he has been reduced to a fragile infantile body, incapable of even controlling his most basic functions, like holding up his own head or avoiding soiling himself. Frustration overwhelms him as he finds himself trapped in what he describes as a prison of flesh, where his sharp mind clashes against the physical limitations of his new form. The first days in this world are a mix of fascination and humiliation for Arthur. His father demonstrates abilities that clearly surpass human limits, performing magical techniques that shatter trees with a single strike. He also witnesses how a mistake in controlling this power leaves Reincarnated severely injured, only for his mother to heal him with a recovery spell. This contrast between brute strength and refined magic deeply intrigues him. Little by little, Arthur realizes he has arrived in a world where magic is not only real, but the very foundation of society. However, he also notes with concern that weapons are common among the population, leading him to conclude that he must regain his power as soon as possible if he hopes to survive in this new environment. Despite everything, there are aspects of his new life that he unexpectedly enjoys, such as the ability to sleep deeply without fear of being assassinated, a luxury he never had in his previous existence as a monarch, always on guard. As the months pass, Arthur masters crawling, though he still feels a strange resistance every time he hears his new name. Taking advantage of his parents' trust, he begins exploring in secret, particularly his mother's room, where he discovers a small library containing books on history and magic. It is here that he obtains vital information about the continent of Dicathen, the place where he has been reborn. This land is divided into three main kingdoms: the kingdom of Deret, an underground nation inhabited by unknown races; the kingdom of Sapin, where he currently lives, ruled by humans and the most populous of the three; the kingdom of Eleanor, home to the elves, beings of grace and superior magical power. Arthur analyzes every detail, comparing this world to his previous one, and concludes that although Sapin is a monarchy like many he knew, the throne is inherited peacefully, without the constant succession wars he was accustomed to. However, what fascinates him most is the central role of magic in society, which explains the apparent technological lag compared to his original world. The books also reveal the fundamentals of mana, the energy that fuels magic in this world. Arthur learns there are two main types of users: conjurers, who project and shape mana to cast spells; augmenters, who use it to enhance their physical abilities to superhuman levels. His mother, with her healing abilities, seems to be an exception to this rule. Most people discover their ability to manipulate mana during puberty, when they manage to concentrate the dispersed energy in their bodies to form a stable core. But Arthur, remembering his knowledge of ki and internal energy warriors in his world cultivated, decides not to wait. He begins experimenting in secret, attempting to sense and control the flow of mana within his tiny body. However, during one of these sessions, his mother catches him, his face red with effort. Mistaking his concentration for another accident, she humiliates him by assuming he has soiled himself again. The shame he feels is profound, but it also motivates him to be more careful in his future practices. As the years pass, Arthur remains a peculiar child, serious, analytical, and rarely smiling, yet absorbing all the knowledge he can. His impatient father tries to prematurely initiate him into swordsmanship, only to be immediately scolded by Alice, who proves to be the true authority in the household. This family dynamic makes Arthur reflect on the power structures in this world, wondering if societies here are more matriarchal than those he knew. During a trip to the city, Arthur has his first direct contact with this world society and is amazed by the level of development in magical weapons and objects, though he still considers them primitive compared to his memories. What impresses him most is seeing street magicians performing minor spells, confirming that magic is an everyday part of life here. Back home, as his mother changes him yet again, Arthur reflects on how fortunate he is, despite everything, to have a family that cares for him, something he never had in his past life as an orphan raised in battle. The next day, while watching his father train with superhuman intensity, proving himself to be a high-level augmenter, Arthur feels he can't waste any more time. That same night, taking advantage of his parents' distraction, he practices forming his monocore with greater determination than ever. Concentrating every fragment of dispersed energy in his body, he finally completes the process. But the energy release is so violent that it triggers an explosion, destroying part of the house. Terrified, his parents rush to him, instinctively shielding him from the debris. When the dust settles, they look at Arthur with a mix of disbelief and pride. Their son, not yet 3 years old, has achieved the impossible by forming a monocore at an age when he shouldn't even be able to sense energy flow. Arthur, for his part, doesn't understand why they're crying. To him, they simply fulfilled their duty as parents by protecting him. But something inside him is moved by this display of unconditional love, a concept so foreign to his past experience that he can't help but burst into tears for the first time since arriving in this world. In an abrupt shift, the scene changes to a dark cave somewhere remote on the continent where a creature of shadows and glowing eyes awakens, as if Arthur's mana explosion had disturbed its slumber. The creature smiles, thus ending the chapter. The chapter begins with a scene shift, showing Arthur's past in his previous life, where he was known as King Grey. Back then, he had to attend a hearing where he was to deliver a sentence for a man who committed the crime of attempting to assassinate the king. However, the council was lenient, deciding to escort the man and his family back to their country to await sentencing. The man pleaded with them to wait, arguing that while it was true he had tried to attack the king, the crime was his alone, and he didn't want his wife or son involved. He knew that returning to his country would be a fate worse than death, and he accepted it as his punishment, but he begged for his family's forgiveness. He then prostrated himself fully before King Grey, making his plea directly to him, but the council warned him to be careful with his words, as this matter did not deserve the king's attention. Suddenly, Grey approached his family and, in a swift attack, took their lives. The council made the man see that the king had saved them from endless suffering, something the man reluctantly accepted, having no other choice but to resign himself to it. Returning to Arthur, years pass, and now his father trains him in combat, offering him a pair of gloves identical to his own. Arthur rejects them, preferring the sword, as he knows that with his current body, using such weapons would leave him vulnerable to enemies who could kill him before he could even strike. Though Reynolds is hurt by this, he had been excited to pass on his gloves. He accepts Arthur's choice and begins training him. After receiving a few attacks from his father, Arthur learns how to imbue his weapon with magic. He grasps the concept just by watching, and soon does the same with his wooden sword. When he strikes, he destroys his father's staff, leaving Reynolds completely surprised. Later, Reynolds speaks with Alice, telling her that Arthur needs a real teacher. He remembers that he was supposed to be the one to train him, but their son has such great potential that a proper master could help him explore it further. Alice disagrees and suggests teaching him her magic, but Reynolds points out that her case is special and wouldn't be effective. Besides, Arthur, despite being only 4 years old, managed to pierce something reinforced with mana. Alice is astonished, but still refuses to let her son go and even tries to convince Reynolds to change his mind. This sparks an argument between them, while Arthur thinks that emotions sometimes cloud one's judgment. He proposes a third option, suggesting that both parents accompany him. After a long silence, his parents call him a genius for the excellent idea and start packing for the journey. Arthur notices their energetic mood and can't help but smile in happiness. Later, carriages arrive to pick them up, and at his father's request, Arthur introduces himself to the group. The leader, assuming Arthur doesn't remember him, introduces himself, but Arthur recognizes him well. They were the adventurers who helped rebuild the house after he destroyed it long ago. The group is called the Twin Horns, where Reynolds and Alice once belonged. The leader is Adam Crench, and the other members are Angela Rose, Durden Walker, Jasmine Flamesworth, and Helen Shart, Basically, names fit for an NBA player. Once everything is ready, they begin their journey. Along the way, Arthur remarks that this mode of transportation is very primitive compared to the advanced technology of his past life. Still, it's not so bad, as he can sit comfortably with his mother. They're heading to a city called Cyrus, but danger lurks everywhere in this world. While camping, monsters suddenly attack, and the group quickly prepares to fight. Arthur observes their combat styles. Adam, Helen, and Jasmine are enhancers, while Angela and Durden appear to be conjurers. After defeating the enemies, Arthur admires their skills and resolves to become as strong as them soon. That night, Arthur reflects on the lack of comforts while traveling, though at least the food is freshly cooked. His mother sighs deeply, and when he asks what's wrong, she says she's full. He stares at her plate, and Alice notices Reynolds' injured arm. She sets her plate aside to heal him, but Helen and Jasmine signal her to wait as they guard the forest. While Alice heals Reynolds, Arthur realizes his mother is a rare type of mage called an emitter, with healing powers. Such mages usually hide their abilities to avoid becoming targets, which explains why his parents lived anonymously in the countryside. Soon after, Adam asks Reynolds for permission to take Arthur for training. Though surprised, Arthur agrees since his father doesn't object. Adam wields a spear, and Arthur doubts the training will be easy, but he keeps his concerns to himself, internally criticizing them for forgetting he's only 4. Adam asks if he's ready and begins imbuing his weapon with mana. Arthur notices he isn't holding back, so he responds in kind, channeling mana into his weapon and legs. This surprises Adam, and without hesitation, Arthur attacks. Adam blocks, but Arthur vanishes from his sight, reappearing behind him, though he skids slightly on the dirt. He manages to block Adam's follow-up strikes, but a powerful blow sends him flying, his lightweight body unable to withstand it. Angela uses wind magic to cushion his fall, much to Alice's relief, who feared her chocolate bonbon, Arthur, would be crushed. The group scolds Adam for going too far, but he defends himself, calling Arthur a little monster. Distracted by their argument, Arthur is startled when Jasmine suddenly appears beside him, asking how he did that. He stays silent, unsure how to respond, but recognizes her determined gaze. She won't give up until she gets answers. The journey continues smoothly, and during this time, Arthur trains and learns from everyone, even sharing knowledge from his past life. He teaches Jasmine how to enhance her feat for speed, and over time, her presence grows closer to him, which he doesn't mind. Unexpectedly, Jasmine reveals she learned it's his birthday and gifts him a knife as thanks for his teachings. Arthur is surprised but grateful, realizing she's grown fond of him. The girls are shocked, as Jasmine rarely bonds with anyone, but Alice proudly claims it's because her son is charming. As they prepare to leave, Arthur notices his mother's discomfort and asks what's wrong. She brushes it off, but her words leave him uneasy. While traveling through the mountains, bandits ambush them, using arrows to pin them down while surrounding them. Angela repels the projectiles with her magic, but the situation is dire. The bandit leader demands they surrender the woman, Alice, and the child, Arthur, threatening harm if they resist. Despite the danger, Alice reassures Arthur, promising to stay by his side. The group fights back. Durden restrains attackers from above, Reynolds engages in close combat, Helen snipes with her bow, and Adam and Jasmine defend the carriages. Arthur worries about their numerical disadvantage, and as the battle drags on, exhaustion sets in. The bandit leader slams Reynolds into a carriage, severely injuring him. Alice and Arthur are forced to flee, but Reynolds urges Arthur to protect his mother, revealing she's pregnant. Shocked, Arthur finally understands her recent behavior. Arthur vows to protect her and escapes with Alice. The bandits pursue, but Reynolds lands a crushing punch on their leader, buying time. Adam and Jasmine throw weapons to clear a path, urging Arthur not to stop. As he runs, Arthur reflects on his past sins, killing a family, and wonders if this is karma. A conjurer bandit attacks with wind magic. Arthur pushes Alice to safety, but is struck and falls off a cliff. Mid-air, he throws his dagger, dragging the bandit down with him. Angela and Durden try to save him with magic, but Arthur feels an odd fulfillment, finally understanding the emotions of the man he once condemned. He thinks of his unborn sibling and sheds tears, regretting he won't be an older brother. The scene shifts. Arthur wakes in an unknown forest, face to face with a giant, imposing monster who greets him by name, leaving him stunned. The chapter ends. Now we see Arthur waking up in a cave where in front of him stands that creature. Terrified, he chooses to attack. However, the creature sends him flying with just a finger. Then, in a woman's voice, it tells little Arthur that he still has much to learn. Arthur gets up and heads toward some fruits in the area, knowing he must be hungry. The creature seems deeply concerned for his well-being, though Arthur remains wary. As he stands, he only ends up hurting himself more. The giant creature warns him not to move, as he's lucky to have survived at all. Despite this, Arthur tries to ask more questions, but the creature refuses to answer until he eats something. So Arthur starts devouring all the fruits he was given. Once finished, he asks if his parents are okay. The creature replies that while it can't leave this place, it can see and reach far more than most. It then shows Arthur that his family is still alive, which brings him to tears with relief. He tries to thank the creature but realizes he doesn't know its name. It introduces itself as Sylvia. After a long period of time living with Sylvia, Arthur's wounds heal, and he wants to return home as soon as possible. However, Sylvia explains that they're on the edge of the Elsyr forest, a place full of outlaws and wild animals. Still, she has a way to bypass it by creating a rift in space, though it requires extensive preparation. During this time, Arthur trains with a stick he found, which pleases Sylvia, as children should stay active. Arthur reflects that Sylvia never speaks about herself and admits he's screamed in fear more than once. Yet, despite her appearance, she's warm and kind. Later, he begins meditating, astonishing Sylvia when she notices he already has a mana core at his age. She asks if he can demonstrate his magic, showing him how she gathers mana. Arthur confirms he understands, comparing it to refueling mid-flight, though he hadn't known it was possible. Sylvia explains that humans have many preconceptions about mana, seeing it only as a tool to accumulate and use, but for creatures like mana beasts, it's as natural as breathing. She offers to teach him, asking what he'll do with this knowledge, warning that gaining such power will make him even stronger. Arthur, remembering the bandits who hurt his family, angrily declares he'd kill those who threaten what's important to him. Sylvia strikes him with a finger, calling this the wrong answer. She refuses to teach someone with such rage in his eyes. Confused, Arthur argues that everyone kills their enemies. It's how he became the most powerful king in his past life. Sylvia, displeased, reminds him she could tear him apart easily, but chooses gentleness instead. She asks which he prefers, and Arthur, reluctantly, chooses kindness. Sylvia agrees, explaining that rage and hatred burn quickly, leaving only more violence behind. She'd rather he not waste the life she saved on vengeance. When she asks again what he'll do with his power, Arthur now answers, protect his loved ones. Satisfied, Sylvia resumes teaching. Meanwhile, a creature similar to Sylvia appears, taunting her that she can't hide from him. In a flashback, Arthur recalls his past life as a figurehead king, a mere tool for war. Returning to the present, he trains under Sylvia's guidance, finally expanding his magical abilities. But suddenly, Sylvia strikes him away, warning him to stay quiet. The enemy has arrived. The creature demands Sylvia come with him, but she refuses. He attacks with dark magic, weakening her, though she reassures Arthur. The creature threatens to shorten her already limited lifespan, but Sylvia sheds her armor, revealing her true form, a white dragon. A fierce battle ensues. Knowing the cost, Sylvia fights anyway, declaring she was happy with Arthur and wishes it could have lasted longer. The enemy bombards her with dark energy, destroying the cave. To protect Arthur, Sylvia uses her power to stop time, opening a portal. She apologizes that the exit isn't closer, but assures him he has what he needs to survive. One last time, she asks what he'll use his power for. To protect my loved ones, he repeats, sealing it as a promise. Sylvia gives him 2 objects, an egg and a feather, and marks his arms, saying he'll understand their purpose in time. She admits she could have sent him home immediately, but enjoyed their time together too much. Frustrated at his inability to save her, Arthur breaks down. Sylvia comforts him, saying the promise doesn't apply here. Tears streaming, he tells her it doesn't matter if she's a dragon or a monster. She's family. When he asks her to be his grandmother, her joy is palpable. As she pushes him through the portal, Arthur begs her to come, but it closes behind him. Sylvia cancels her time stop, taking the full force of the attack. In a final act, she unleashes a massive explosion. Elsewhere, 2 figures by the sea discuss the future. Arthur hears Sylvia's voice one last time. The world is full of pain, but that's why we must fill it with happiness. Step by step, you'll achieve it. You are the strongest king. Don't let hatred consume you. Let light bathe your new life, King Gray. Arthur wakes in the forest, weeping but determined to fulfill Sylvia's wish. As he gathers himself, a rustling in the bushes catches his attention. A young girl. Quickly, Arthur channels his mana into his feet and climbs a tree, from where he sees a group of bandits kidnapping an elf girl. One of them mentions that elves sell for a high price. Upon hearing that they plan to sell her as a mixed breed, Arthur recalls how those same bandits had intended to do the same to his mother and him. Though he wants to intervene and kill those wretched men, he remembers Sylvia's words and decides not to let his negative emotions control him. Hours later, Arthur observes the bandits resting and considers the possibility of asking them for directions to the nearest human settlement. However, he also thinks there's no guarantee they won't harm the elf girl, so he decides to prepare and wait until nightfall. Once ready, he wonders why the wolves accompanying the bandits are so obedient. Noticing they wear magical collars, he decides to take advantage of this. He throws a few nuts toward the wolves, causing a commotion that angers the bandits. The noise could attract other beasts in the forest. One of them kicks the wolves to silence them. Arthur seizes the moment, taking out the first bandit and claiming his knife. When another bandit appears, wondering what's taking so long, Arthur swiftly drops from above and slits his throat. Though he's already killed two, Arthur notes internally how exhausting it is to fight in this child's body. A third bandit appears, and Arthur slices his leg, immobilizing him. The bald bandit shouts for his boss to be careful, warning that the kid is a mage. Instead of being alarmed, the leader is thrilled. He now has a valuable prize to sell alive. The boss stabs his knife into the ground and uses enhancement magic before charging at Arthur. The boy dodges the first strike and counters with a kick. The bandit admits it wasn't a bad move. Without hesitation, Arthur throws his dagger with a wire attached, but the bandit catches it and swiftly kicks him down. Lifting Arthur by the legs, the bandit sneers, but Arthur takes the opportunity to condense fire in his leg, burning the man. Enraged, the bandit declares he'll no longer capture Arthur alive. He'll sell his corpse to a deranged collector instead. But before he can act, Arthur throws his dagger, embedding it in the man's forehead. With the leader dead, only the bald bandit remains, begging for his life. Arthur feels no mercy. He's sure the elf girl pleaded the same way. After finishing the last bandit, Arthur approaches the girl and removes her blindfold. At first glance, her face reminds him of someone else, but he brushes it off. He tells her she's safe now and can return home. However, the elf girl stares at Arthur in amazement, something he finds unremarkable. Still, he realizes a normal child would be surprised by such things. He then notes that this is the first time he's been with someone his own age. Before continuing, Arthur covers the bandits' corpses, which the elf girl notices. He tells her there are things children shouldn't see, even though he's also a child. The little elf asks what happened to the bad men who kidnapped her. Unsure how to respond, Arthur simply says they had an unfortunate accident and reassures her she's safe now. He then hands her belongings back and says, "It was nice meeting you." Of course, the girl stops him, her eyes pleading. She's scared and doesn't want to be abandoned. Arthur hesitates but tells her he needs to return to his family and that the bad men won't come after her again. The elf girl, now annoyed, asks what kind of jerk would abandon a helpless child in the forest. Arthur is confused. Shouldn't an elf be safe in the woods? She replies that her parents told her tree monsters eat children. Defeated, Arthur asks if she knows where she lives. She points in the opposite direction of where he was heading, but admits she doesn't know how far it is. She was chasing bugs and got lost. Arthur finds this irresponsible, but supposes children are like that. Reluctantly, he decides he can't just leave her. The elf girl then worries about the wolves, suggesting they should free them since leaving them would mean their death. Though hesitant, Arthur agrees, and she releases them, explaining that the bandits were the only ones who used them for evil. She adds that her village values all life. With that settled, they set off toward her home. The next morning, they rest, and Arthur asks her name. "Tasia Erai," she replies. Arthur introduces himself in return. He then serves her a meal, telling her she must be hungry. Even if she isn't, she should eat something. The words remind him of what Sylvia once told him in the cave, making him realize he's starting to sound like her. Tasia tries the food, boiled dried meat with salt, and hates it. In his mind, Arthur admits he's always seen food as mere sustenance, though he recalls happier meals with his family. He thinks that if he wants to act like a child, he should learn from Tessia. She asks what he's doing in the Elshire forest. He replies that he's separated from his family, making her assume he's lost too. On the way, Arthur asks about life in the Elven kingdom. She tells him the country is called Elwar and that it's fun. Since her parents are busy, she spends most of her time with her grandparents and caretakers. At one point, Tesia shows him a bug used in Elenwar to mark paths, even putting one on his ear like an earring. Arthur wonders if this is how children play. As they walk, Tesia mentions that once her mana awakens, she'll train under a master. Arthur is surprised. Do elves not have organized education? Tesia doesn't know. That night, they hear howls. Arthur recognizes them as the horned wolves from before. He regrets not killing them. He tells Tessia to sleep, but she insists he should rest too. Alone, Arthur wonders what Sylvia wanted to give him. Tessia interrupts, asking if he really doesn't need sleep. She mentions her grandfather warned her not to sleep near men, but promises not to tell anyone. Arthur reassures her and tells her to rest. Still, she refuses, saying if they stay outside, others might notice them and cause trouble. Arthur teases her, asking if she's afraid of ghosts. She denies it, shouting that she's just worried for their safety and insists they stay inside the tent. Inside, Tessia asks about the human kingdom, saying she's heard human men are filthy and have many wives, though she doesn't fully understand what filthy means. Arthur explains only certain nobles have multiple wives, but she's already fallen asleep. Watching her, he wonders if this is what having a little sister feels like. The next day, they continue walking. Arthur notices Tessia growing more comfortable around him, almost as if she's forgotten the slavers. Still, he wants to reunite her with her family as soon as possible. But then, something unexpected happens. An unbearable pain surges from his mana core. Tessia, worried, searches for herbs to help, but the pain only worsens. Arthur hides it, not wanting to worry her. As he rests against a tree, one of the horned wolves appears, bringing a small boar. Tessia returns with something she claims helps stomach aches, but the wolf simply leaves the boar and departs. She thinks it was returning a favor. That night, they enjoy tender meat. Arthur admits it's delicious. Tessia adds that she didn't find herbs, but did gather nutritious mushrooms, which elven women often eat. However, when Arthur tries them, they give him terrible gas, proof they're too strong for humans. Inside the tent, exhaustion overtakes Arthur, and he falls asleep as Tessia rambles about wanting to visit the human kingdom, but fearing the bad people there. She mentions that's why Elenwar's people distrust outsiders, especially humans. Noticing he's asleep, she covers him with a blanket. The next morning, they resume their journey, though Arthur still feels the pain. Tessia suddenly stops and asks if she can call him Artan as a friend. "Whatever you want," Arthur replies. Annoyed, she asks if that's all he has to say. He jokingly responds, "For a low-born villager like me, accompanying Lady Tessia Erai is an honor I don't deserve." She groans, calling it an old man's joke. As they walk, Arthur reflects on the word friend, remembering everything Tessia has done. Then she finds the portal leading home, to Elenwar, the Elven Kingdom. Without warning, she pulls Arthur in with her, but as soon as they arrive, soldiers surround them, stating that the portal's activation triggered an alert. They seize Arthur. Though he calls for Tessia's help, she just stands there, frozen. Upon seeing his expression, it feels like he was convinced too quickly by their crude words. Elves and humans have been enemies for a long time, yet he let himself be swayed by that little girl's innocence. However, when Tessie hears that the soldiers are about to execute Arthur, she orders them to stop because Arthur saved her life. The soldiers, however, still intend to kill him, believing he manipulated the princess to infiltrate Elven territory. Luckily, someone arrives and commands them to release the boy, explaining to his granddaughter that it's only natural for the soldiers to react this way upon seeing a human with the missing princess. He introduces himself to Arthur as the former king of Eleanor Vidian Aerolite and thanks him for saving his granddaughter. Arthur is shocked to learn Tessie's true identity. He never imagined he'd been traveling with a princess. He can't believe it, as he sensed no hint of royalty in her. At that moment, her parents arrive, worried about her. Seeing them, Arthur realizes they are the rulers of Eleanor. But the king, upon noticing Arthur, asks the soldiers why they haven't captured the human. However, he clarifies to his son that he ordered them not to detain him because, Despite being a barbarian, he was the one who rescued Tessie and brought her back. Tessie tells her parents that Arthur saved her, so now they owe him. She suggests inviting him to the castle and excitedly tells Arthur she'll have the chefs prepare his favorite dishes. Though if it's anything like the mushroom she made him eat earlier, he'd rather not. After giving her parents a stern look, they don't object. Tessie then drags Arthur away by the hand as he senses a strange power emanating from her. Later, as they walk through the city, Arthur is met with hostile glares from the elves. He's amazed by the city's infrastructure, just as he read in books. Humans and elves remain in conflict due to past wars, so it's incredible that he's witnessing an elven city firsthand. Tessie finds him peculiar too, though she still doesn't understand the pain she saw in his expression earlier, but he's determined not to let his guard down again. Once they reach the castle, Tessie introduces Arthur to all the servants, ordering them to treat him with the utmost hospitality as her savior. She wonders what they should do first, but Arthur interrupts, suggesting they discuss everything that's happened. Later, at a meeting with the royal family, Tessie insists Arthur sit down, and the soldiers force him into a chair. She requests snacks while Arthur questions if this is all appropriate. King Aldwin Aerolite and Queen Mariel Aerolite introduce themselves. Arthur formally presents himself, explaining he comes from a poor village in the kingdom of Sapin and never expected to stand before elven royalty. Aldwin remarks that for someone born in poverty, he's well educated, but Arthur thinks his exaggerated introduction won't help if they keep treating him like a child. As Arthur recounts his encounter with Tessie, Aldwin grows angry, blaming those barbaric humans. Arthur respectfully counters that slave traders are an occupation, not a racial trait. Barian questions how a mere child could defeat slavers, to which Arthur replies that despite his age, he's a mage. The elves doubt a child could achieve such a feat, and a soldier accuses him of deceiving the princess to infiltrate their lands. Aldwin silences the soldier, warning him not to repeat his actions. Tessie defends Arthur, explaining she was kidnapped and nearly sold. Her mother comforts her as Aldwin begrudgingly accepts Arthur's story. Arthur asks if, as a reward, they could return him to his homeland. Aldwin scoffs, asking how a human dares request favors from elves who despise them. Arthur fires back, pointing out that if elves call humans barbarians, they're acting no differently. This stuns Aldwin into silence. Tessie glares at her father, who relents and explains that the teleportation gate to Sapin only opens once every 7 years, and the next opening is 5 years away. Arthur is frustrated, but Aldwin offers an alternative. His soldiers will escort Arthur home. Relieved, Arthur suddenly feels intense pain again. Later, while bathing, the pain worsens. Stepping outside for air, he sees Tessie with her parents and is reminded of his own family. He trusts they're alive, but wonders if they'll welcome him with smiles like Tessie's parents did. Tessie notices him and apologizes for her family's rudeness. Arthur reassures her, saying their concern was natural. She insists his parents must miss him, but he doubts it. After all, his family was attacked because of him. Frustrated, he admits he couldn't protect them. Tessie pinches his cheeks, insisting they must miss him. Suddenly, fireflies light up the corridor, and Arthur imagines his parents in their glow. Realizing he was lost in his dark thoughts, he apologizes to Tessie, saying he likes the flowers too. But then he senses a presence and attacks, only to find it's Varian, Tessie's grandfather. Varian praises Arthur's reflexes, convinced now that he did defeat the slavers. Tessie scolds him, but Varian says he's found someone interesting after so long. He tosses Arthur a wooden sword, wanting to test his skills. Arthur struggles to land a hit, but Varian destroys his sword. A shard flies toward Tessie, but Arthur deflects it and counters with magic. Varian blocks it easily, comparing Arthur to a wild beast fighting on instinct. He sends Arthur flying, but Arthur retaliates, striking Varian's forehead. Amused, Varian declares a second round, but Tessie pinches him to stop. Varian jokes that if he holds back, Arthur might take advantage. Arthur humbly says it's an honor to be overestimated. Varian then offers to take him as his disciple. Arthur hesitates, wanting to inform his parents first. Varian smirks, asking, "What if I told you there's a way to let your parents know you're safe?" Arthur is stunned, but the pain returns violently. Varian nods, saying he expected this. Arthur has inherited the beast's will. He warns Arthur to become his disciple or die. End of chapter. Like and subscribe for more.